So in November of 2023, Mrs. Brown sent me a video from our backyard, and our neighbors in the back corner were getting a 30-foot tree taken down because it was no longer safe. It was a giant redwood tree that had been there for years and years and years. She sent me the video while I was at work, and I was like, that's crazy, that's wild looking. We were out for a walk one day, and so I started to talk to my neighbors about it, and I was like, you know, if you've got a piece of wood that's left behind, I'd be happy to make a bowl for you. He said, come back in a few hours and I'll have one for you. We came back around, and this was what his piece of wood was, is a giant piece of redwood from their tree, cross section of the redwood from the tree. The two of us together barely got it into my truck. After I drove it home, we pushed it out of the bed of the truck, and I proceeded to split it up. You can see me here struggling with it for quite some time. I used a couple of splitters and ended up chunking it up into ultimately 5 pieces. We're coming close to March of 2024. This is what's left of that, which is still a lot of material. And I'm going to try and show you the process of going from basically from a log to hopefully all the way down to a bowl. So when you've got a green piece of wood, what you need to do is you need to seal up this end grain, because water will evaporate quicker out of the end grain than it will out of the long grain. And so what you want to do is you want to try to equalize them. And by sealing this up, you're equalizing the water loss. Your odds are better that it won't split or crack. Still incredibly heavy, and the majority of that weight is water. So if you're trying to picture this in your mind's eye, basically what we're trying to do is we're trying to get a bowl out of here, right? Oops. And that should just pull right off. Yeah, there we go. Not a problem. Yes, I'm leaving that in. If you're looking at the bowl, this will be the inside, the middle. I replaced the belts in my drill press, and it is still slipping. So, I am taking recommendations for a new drill press. So this is my wizard jig. It has lots of attachments and functions. You've only seen me do one thing with it, and that's cut circles. It's good at cutting circles. Yay! That's a lot of weight on that table. It's already tilting up. But I think we still got what we're looking for. Coming up, guys. So there we go. 24 pounds, 6 ounces. It's a cam at the moment, so you can see where it's hitting. About this much. Cool. So we're going to turn this way down. There we go. We are at capacity. I'm not a production wood shop. I'm not about getting the most out of this wood. This one's going to change in shape a lot. It's got a big flat spot on it. I just want to get some of the wobble out of it and get it into a shape that looks more like a bowl. It's also really heavy, so I need to be careful. I'm going to switch over to my monster scraper. to thank BetterHelp for sponsoring this video. A lot of you have reached out to me and told me that you've been using this service, it's been working for you, and you really like it. And that's fantastic. That's really nice to hear. The first time you do a therapy session, you might not know what to expect. You might not know what to say. You might not even end up having a lot to say. The process of therapy works. When I first started with therapy, I had this idea in my brain of laying on a couch and telling my dreams to some weird guy with a beard, smoking a pipe in a tweed suit. And you don't need some deep childhood trauma to go to therapy. Therapy is for people that are overwhelmed by the week, that are having trouble with their family, or just struggling under the emotional weight of their feelings. And yeah, your best friend Stu is a good listener, but he doesn't always give good advice, and he honestly might not be licensed for this. To get started with BetterHelp, you're just going to fill out a questionnaire that's going to ask you what struggles you're going through and what sort of therapist you think you'd like. BetterHelp will match you to one of over 30,000 therapists in their network based on your needs, preferences, and location. That gives you access to a wider range of expertise than may even be available in your city. And look, if you feel like your therapist isn't a great fit, you can change your therapist with a click of the button in your settings at no additional cost. Join over 4 million people who have started to live a healthier, happier life with BetterHelp. Simply click the link in the description below or visit betterhelp.com/Peter Brown. And I'd like to once again thank BetterHelp for continuing to support this channel. We're definitely getting closer to a bowl-ish shape. You can't fall in love with anything yet because things are going to change. You can see how much smaller it is. The more that happens, the weaker this tenon's gonna get. I'm just gonna put the tailstock back up. All right, I think we might be past the knot, so let's try. Take this out, see if we can't. That is rough turned. What does rough turned mean? A huge portion of shavings out of the inside of the bowl. It's still very thick and it is still very wet. This will allow the bowl to continue to dry. Look at that. I think we just found Loki in the bottom of my bowl. Do you see him?
I do see him.
What's he doing in the bottom of my bowl?
That's super weird.
If you had any idea how much trouble I had hollowing that, I find it highly amusing.
But it makes sense.
£5, 4 ounces. Is 3, 2, 24. £5, 4 ounces. Paper bag and some of these wet shavings. Stick the whole thing in the paper bag. With a couple of his brothers. I'll check it every week or so, rotate the shavings just to make sure that no mold gets in there. I think this one was rough turned back in December. And I did the same process on these that I just did on Loki Bowl. And this one was turned December 3rd, 2023. This one was turned November 28th, 2023. So that's exactly what we're going to do with the Loki bowl. It's going to sit for a number of months. You just want to kind of rotate the shaving so that you don't get mold. We'll start with this one. Showed 3.8 pounds in December, and you can see it's lost quite a bit of weight. It is now 2 pounds, 1 ounce. Let's move over to this, which was turned in November. It's also lost quite a bit of weight. It is now 2 pounds, 6 ounces-ish. Of course, if you're of a certain age, this might give you another vibe. When a problem comes along, you must whip it. Now whip it into shape. But we're gonna go with this one, simply because it's larger, and I want to give my neighbor as large a bowl as I can from his redwood tree. Tenon actually looks pretty good. This one fared better than the Loki bowl. In this shop, we anthropomorphize everything. I've got the Loki bowl, the Devo bowl. Actually, this one doesn't have a name yet. We'll see if it gives itself one. Oh, I mean, that's surprising. That actually looks really good. Sometimes when they're dried, they actually get a bit of a wobble. That looks pretty good. Don't do it, Peter. This should go pretty easy. I don't want to lose any size. I'm gonna take some more from the inside than the outside. A bit of an ugly spot right here that we're gonna have to figure out, but other than that, it should be pretty smooth sailing. You know what? I'm gonna hit this with a little CA. I just don't want it to break apart while we're turning it, and the CA will help to stabilize that. Somebody grabbed the CA glue, it's on the ground. Turns out I don't have a shop assistant. It's too bad. That cracks a little character, we'll leave that. And so now we'll finish up shaping the inside. Everything there that's been markered needs to be worked on. This part, this outer part looks pretty good. It's super easy to go too aggressive at this point. They call that being a member of the funnel club, and that's not a club we want to join today. You guys are kind of in the way. Right. And we can get a pretty decent idea of where the bottom of the bowl is. There's actually some moisture in here. It's not soaking wet or anything, but you can feel wetness where you can't feel it here. 120, and then we're to go up through the grits. 150, 180, 240, 320, 400, and 600. Sanding both the outside and the inside. I bought these green pads years ago for power sanding, but I don't do much power sanding anymore, but I still like them. They're my favorite sanding pads. I get them from a place called Vince's Wooden Wonders. It's actually the same place I get my micro mesh. So these are called coal jaws. They're an attachment for your chuck, and it's typically the way I finish the bottom of my bowls. They're great and they're awful all at the same time. The process always makes me nervous. Yep. Sometimes it goes perfect and sometimes it doesn't. Got a new crack that wasn't there before. Big old blemish here. So unfortunate. I don't even know what happened. It looked like it was going perfectly. I seriously don't even know how that happened. I don't know. That makes me super sad. I've only had that happen once or twice, but oh my gosh, it's so heartbreaking. I spent about an hour on my hands and knees trying to find this piece that broke off. Best I can tell, it just shattered and it was gone. So I went inside and told Mrs. Brown, and she came out and found this in about 5 minutes. So yeah. I put on gloves because I was going to use CA and then decided to do wood glue at the last minute. I used CA glue on this side with some shavings, and so I'm going to try to just mimic that on this side. The sound of it bouncing off the lathe was horrendous, so I expected it to be a lot worse. Once it's all dried, I'll sand this whole thing back up to 600 grit, and I'll do that by hand. I'm really happy with the way this looks. Mrs. Brown came out to the shop this morning and was like, "Shop smells weird." Yeah, it's wood. It's called wood. I realized April of 2022 was the last time I turned a bowl, and December of 2020 was the last time I turned a wooden bowl. It has been a while for me, just turning a wooden bowl. I really wanted to do this for my neighbor. I hope he enjoys it. I think he will. I still need to sign the bottom, but I think I'm just going to do that with the laser, so that'll be something fun to try. This is 10 inches in diameter and 5 inches in height, so it's a pretty good size bowl. It'll make a nice center table bowl. We've got the two issues on the rim. One of them was natural and one of them was man-made. In fact, the man-made one just kind of looks like a knot. I'm not gonna tell my neighbor that I dropped his bowl off the lathe, and as long as you guys don't tell him, nobody's ever gonna find out. The finish that I used on this is Mike Mahoney's walnut oil. In this shop, we don't produce a lot of bowls that are food safe. It's a food safe bowl. Imagine that. Thank you guys very much for watching. I really appreciate it. So I've got to sign the bottom of this, deliver it to my neighbor, and hope they like it. And that's, oh, and the thumbnail. Why did I think this was a good idea? Steady. Gosh, I hope that's in focus. I'm gonna die.